With the flick of a wrist, it lets you talk, text, listen to music, and now researchers in New York say your smartwatch could help predict a positive case of COVID-19. CTV science and technology expert Dan Riskin joining us for another edition of This Week in Science. This is very cool, Dan. The study involved Mount Sinai healthcare workers in Toronto who wore these wearable devices. They filled out a survey every day to indicate if they had any symptoms. What were researchers looking for, first of all?
Yeah, I mean, the big holy grail is to figure out, I mean, it's such a basic thing with COVID-19, but do you have it or do you not? I mean, there's all these questions about different testing methods. It's very difficult. Right now, the best we can do is to stick a swab up your nose and then wait a couple days and then find out whether it's positive or negative. But even there's inaccuracy. So we're still looking for that holy grail. The idea here was a lot of people are wearing smartwatches. Maybe if you just look really carefully at heart rate, you'd be able to tell if somebody had COVID-19 or not. But to do this test, they needed to find a population that was likely to get the disease. So they actually did this in New York City on workers at the Mount Sinai health system there, where healthcare workers were at high risk of getting COVID-19. And unfortunately, some of the people in their sample did get COVID-19, but that gave them the opportunity to make a comparison between people who had COVID-19 and people who didn't.
So, Dan, explain to us, how does COVID affect somebody's heart rate? Like, what would it show?
Yeah, so it wasn't actually like your heart rate would just get faster if you had COVID-19. This was actually looking very carefully at the intervals between heartbeats and how variable those intervals are. So it's not the average, it's the standard deviation if you're a stats nerd and you like that stuff. And so, we all know that we have circadian rhythms and we have, we sleep at night and our heart rate goes down. We're active during the day, our heart rate goes up. The variability in our heart rate also changes with these circadian rhythms. And this watch was measuring heartbeats very, very systematically. And when those data were taken into account, they found a significant difference between people who had COVID-19 and people who did not have COVID-19 in the variability of their heart rate. But what's really, really cool here is that not only was it different on the day that they got symptoms, so it just turns out to be another symptom of COVID-19, but they could find significant differences a week before that positive PCR test. And so this suggests that watches could be an early warning system to tell people they have COVID-19 even before they get that nasal swab.
Whoa, that is very cool. All right, how could this be used as a potential diagnosis for other things?
Well, the point is we're wearing these activity monitors and a lot of the data just get thrown away. We don't even use it. I mean, we might track our number of steps, but we don't track basic things like, are the steps all in the same hour or are they spread out across the day? And what does that correlate with? And here you have a really nice study where these people were taking track of their symptoms every single day. So there was a nice data set to go with the heart rate data to really look for these patterns. But of course, there are a lot of issues with this as well. First of all, they only had 13 people in their study who came down positive with COVID-19, which is a blessing because you don't want people to get it. But 13 people is not very many people to draw these kinds of conclusions from. They had about 100 people who did not have it, 13 who did. And so those comparisons, you can argue, well, it's a small sample size, so you shouldn't draw too much from it. Or you could say, wow, that they got a significant difference with such a small sample size is really shows that there's something there. So definitely more work needed. And, of course, all the privacy concerns and all the equality concerns. Apple Watches tend to be worn by rich people, not by everybody. And this disease affects people who are socioeconomically disadvantaged much more than people who are wealthy. So there are all kinds of issues that this brings up. But it's important for this pandemic, and it's going to be important for healthcare going forward.
It is fascinating in this time when everybody's looking for answers and for speed that, a pre-indicator might already be there sitting on your wrist. Fascinating to know. Dan, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.